The Champ Car World Series has been racing at Long Beach since 1984 when Mario Andretti went to victory lane. Today, the stars of the sport are ready for the second race of the season after Will Power stole the show at Vegas. Last week, the streets of Las Vegas echoed with Will Power as the winner of the Champion Series kicked off the 2007 season. And at the checkered flag, Will Power had KO'd all challengers. Despite Will Power's dominance, there is a field full of headstrong heroes looking to take him on as Champ Car's best do battle in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. NBC Sports presents the 2007 Champ Car World Series. Today, it's the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. The green flag less than 10 minutes away. Off the win at Vegas, 26-year-old Will Power starts this race on the front row, next to pole sitter Sebastian Bourdais. But the big story is the man who is not in the field. Here's Marty Snyder.
And Bill, that missing man is former series champion and series star Paul Tracy, the Canadian driver. Yesterday, during qualifying, was leaving pit road on cold tires when exit of turn one, lost control of his race car. You can see he nosed it right into the wall, rode on the wall for a little while, and then had a hard impact when he came back down the racetrack. He was taken to a local hospital, diagnosed with a compression fracture in his lower back. Before he left for his home in Las Vegas, I asked him yesterday, what's the long-term prognosis?
I talked to Dr. Pendersky, and you know, he's basically saying, you know, it's 3 months is the healing time on it. So he advised me to go see Dr. Trammell this week, and then try to get on a physical therapy program, and you know, hopefully we can speed that up. But you know, the initial prognosis is about 3 months.
And I talked to the Tracy camp this morning. That appointment is now scheduled for Tuesday. Tracy will fly from Las Vegas to Indianapolis for that prognosis appointment, trying to figure out what the long-term future is for him. Meanwhile, this weekend and probably next weekend as well, Oriol Servia will fill in the car, in the number 3 car. He told me he's very happy to have the ride, but doesn't like the situation in which it came from.
As a driver, you don't want any driver, you know, in general, to get hurt. So that's bad. I mean, the good thing is not too bad. I mean, he's going to be okay in a couple of months or so. But for me, it's a huge break. You know, I mean, I've been trying to get a good ride for the all off season. I was actually talking to the Foresight team for a while. We're trying to put something together. It just didn't happen in time. So I'm just really glad they put me in the car, and they trust me that I'll do a good job for them.
Well, speaking of a good job, as the cars set out from the grid out onto the pace lap, one driver looking to get a good job in is Sebastian Bourdais, the 3-time Champ Car champion. Last week in Las Vegas, nothing but trouble. He qualified worse than he ever has before in Champ Car, but now he is back to familiar territory. He is on the pole. Remember, he won 5 of the 7 races from the pole last year.
Yeah, it definitely feels great for the Magnus team to be back here on the pole in Long Beach after, like you said, a terrible weekend in Vegas. So we start from the pole, and we've got a good car, so hopefully we'll have a flawless weekend.
Back again this year, Andy Whitted from the pole again.
There is a tremendous rookie crop this year in the Champ Car World Series, but the rookie everybody was talking about last week was Robert Doornbos, driving the number 14 Minardi Team USA car. He not only qualified second, he ran a great race and finished second last week in his first Champ Car start. Let's go to Michelle Binder. Back to the booth.
Hi, everybody. Bill Weber along with Wally Dollabak and Jan Vikas. Thanks for having us in for the race. You guys have both raced for a long time. Your thoughts on the Paul Tracy situation?
Well, it's a huge story. I mean, you know, as competitors, when you're on the racetrack, you don't like each other, but we're all buddies out there. When you hear a fellow driver has gotten hurt, your first thing is you want to see how bad he is hurt and if he's going to get back and if things are okay. The second thing that comes to mind, though, when you're a competitor, and this is for real, is, well, good. That's one last guy I got to worry about the championship. That's one last guy I got to worry about passing on the race. So, although we're looking out for each other and we care for each other, you know, you're always looking for that advantage. I don't know if you see it that way, Jan. I know most people know you're a much nicer person than I am.
Well, when I think about Paul Tracy, the one thing that reminds me of Paul Tracy, he is one of the few drivers who has Sebastian Bourdais' number. So if you want to keep Sebastian Bourdais from winning the championship 4 straight times, what do? You need a changing of the guard. I think that's Will Power. He dominated in Las Vegas, but he dominated
dominated when we saw Sebastian in trouble. Today, Sebastian's right on top of it.
Bourdais and Power on the front row. Let's take a look at the streets of Long Beach for today's race.
Long Beach is an awesome racetrack in a Champ Car. Going down the main straightaway, it's 180 miles an hour in 7th gear. You jump on the brakes, go down to 75. Turn 1 is 3rd gear, then around the fountain, down to 45 through the rhythm section, the back straightaway. Awesome place to pass, 170 miles an hour, dive into turn 9, an awesome place to pass, and of course the signature turn, the hairpin, leading back to start-finish.
And guys, anytime you have a very long straightaway where you can get up to about 180 miles an hour and then a very narrow left-hand first corner, you're going to have problems. Check out last year's race. 4 cars were taken out in turn 1. They didn't make it to turn 2 of this race last year. I asked Will Power, what's the key to avoiding that this year? He said there's only one way to avoid it. Do a single file start. And Bill, we know that wouldn't be fun for anyone, would it?
It certainly wouldn't, Marty. Certainly wouldn't. And these competitors have been discussing the start and the first turn of this race basically since you got here earlier this week. Take a look at our onboard cameras. There's Oreo Servia. Actually, I believe that looks like Graham Rahal's car. Graham Rahal.
Good call there, Bill. You're catching on to this.
I'm working on this. Graham, who really is looking at this as his very first race because he didn't even complete a green flag lap at Las Vegas 1 week ago. See the starting grid at the top of your screen. 17 cars in the field. On board now with Justin Wilson. He starts 7th today. That's CDW machine.
Cool shot.
And there's Servia driving Paul Tracy's car. Tracy again out for 3 months.
Now they're still trying to attempt the staggered start, right, Jan? But as we both know, they threw it.
That wasn't exactly what they were looking for.
That was pretty sloppy. But maybe we can get through turn 1 cleanly.
Bourdais in the McDonald's machine. Then the green and gold of Will Power.
I think that probably caught a lot of guys off guard there, Jan, that they threw that green, because I know there's guys still coming out of the hairpin here that were trying to catch up to get in position.
What they were working on is they wanted, obviously, 2 car lengths between cars with a somewhat staggered start, which is new for this year, and I believe that's getting the cars in the positions that they'll be down the road here when you have a standing start. But obviously, I know the Champ Car would have wanted to have a lot more cars on the front straightaway, but you know what? The fact that so far every car has made it through those first tricky bits of the racetrack, I think that's still a win.
Bourdais, then Will Power, then Alex Tagliani in that red and black machine. He runs 3rd. Then the rookie, Simone Pagenaud, in the 4th position.
Talked to Tag this morning. He was pretty excited about this race today. They really feel like they're gaining on this deal, and he was in the car adjusting pedals and things right there at the last minute. But he was pretty pumped, Michelle.
Yes, he was, and I actually spoke with him this morning. He said that they were having some problem with the brake bias, that the bias seemed to be automatically adjusting to the rear of the car, and that they were going to work on that. So we'll see how that pans out.
Thanks, Michelle. Justin Wilson really trying to make a move there.
Look at how tight the streets are here at Long Beach compared to last week at Las Vegas. You've got places to pass here. There's no question about it, but it is a lot narrower.
It's Robert Doornbos in front of him. The white wing. That's Wilson in the 9. Alex Figge with an early pit stop.
Boy, these guys have had a lot of trouble the last couple of weeks. It just seems like all these little gremlins are biting them, and you know, I talked to those guys this morning too, and they're starting to come around, but I think they underestimated how tough this was going to really be.
That they were replacing, you may have noticed, did not have a front wing, so Alex Figge obviously had some contact with something out there. They'll get that changed and get him back out, but as you can see, the leaders down the front straightaway. Figge will go down a lap.
On board with Graham Rahal, the 18-year-old rookie. When I talked to him yesterday after practice, he really said, "It'll be my first Champ Car race," after he hit the wall on the first green flag lap at Vegas last Sunday. Said he put that immediately behind him and immediately began looking forward to the next race, not worrying about what had already happened.
And that's kind of the Newman-Haas-Lanigan. We have to add, remember, Newman-Haas
Right.
we've become so familiar with. There's a three-partner group now. Newman-Haas-Lanigan, this team. I really feel that when you spoke with them for both Graham Rahal and Sebastian Bourdais, that they have relaxed. They realized they were panicking a little bit when things didn't go their way in Vegas. They're so used to everything going their way. Everyone, including the drivers, has eased up. Cameron?
Well, Jan, I can definitely tell you after talking to Graham Rahal, very frustrated from Las Vegas. But the important thing you wanted to note was that the team isn't forcing him to use settings that Sebastian uses. He says a lot of times when you join a team that has championships and wins, they want you to run what the other drivers are running. Graham said, I've just been thrilled that they are working with me on what I want to set up the car like. Even though I haven't got it totally dialed in, I feel really comfortable with the way they're setting things up.
Yeah, you've got to have the car comfortable for you. I mean, it doesn't do you any good if you're driving somebody else's setups and it doesn't work for you. You can have two of the fastest guys in any racing series out there, and they're going to be two totally different setups. It's just really driver feel and what the driver's looking for and the way that car handles for him.
Oriol Servia in Paul Tracy's ride, that blue and white machine, the 3-car.
Now, that car right there, I mean, Servia said this morning that he liked the way Paul Tracy's setup was. He says, I like the way the car. He says, I never changed anything.
Well, Paul Tracy is very, very good at setting up race cars, as well as the Forsythe team. And when the car is right and your driving style is similar, but in the case of Rahal and Sebastian Bourdais, their driving styles aren't similar. But in this case, it looks like Servia's is.
More from Marty Snotter.
Hey guys, and that's one thing Oriol told me this morning. He said, you know, when I sat in the car, I was a little worried about what the setup would feel to me. He said, I was amazed, as you guys said, it was pretty much right on. We have not turned a screw on this car for me. It's really me getting more comfortable. The one thing they're interested in, the pit stops. They practiced them all morning today in warm-ups because on his first try, he overshot the pits by 3 feet. So they're going to pay attention to those today during the race as well.
And that's something else we'll have to watch for from Graham Rahal, because he'll basically be making his first pit stop in Champ Car competition today.
They've had an opportunity to do some pit stops with Graham in the offseason, but there is a huge difference, Bill. I think it's a great point. A huge difference doing pit stop in practice versus doing one in competition, because your heart rate is just to the limit.
Tagliani in the red car, then Pagenaud in that green and gold, then Rahal, the light blue with the white trim. Sebastian Bourdais started on the pole next to Will Power. That's how they run here in the early minutes of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. It's Bourdais, Power, Tagliani, Pagenaud, and Graham Rahal. You're watching the Champ Car World Series live on NBC. NBC Sports coverage of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach is brought to you by Toyota, moving forward. And by Bridgestone. For drivers who want to get the most out of their cars, it's Bridgestone or nothing. Want to thank the city of Long Beach for providing today's aerial coverage, and it has just been a blast being here this week. Just a little breezy, a little cooler than usual, but the weather's been outstanding, and just great scenery all around the track, so much to do. So just as one fan put it, it's the best party of the year right here at Long Beach. Sebastian Bourdais at the head of the class right now, followed by Will Power and Alex Tagliani.
Tell you what, Will Power's been putting in some pretty good laps here. I've been watching the monitor here on the timing and scoring, and Will Power's been fast. The last couple laps, he's been a little bit quicker than Bourdais, so we'll see if he's can get up there and make a challenge for the lead.
Let's check in with Bill Stevens.
This is exactly the kind of run that Sebastian Bourdais and his team wanted here this weekend. Of course, last weekend we talked a lot about all the problems they had. They were scheduled to test in Phoenix on Monday. They had their travel all set. They were ready to go, and then they realized they had no cars to test. They were all damaged last week in Las Vegas, so instead of testing cars, they were repairing them.
And it was a couple of 12-hour days for both the McDonald's team and for Graham Rahal's team. Rahal's car with much more damage, of course, than Bourdais, but a couple of long days for those teams getting those cars ready to get here. And then, of course, working here Thursday and Friday as well once they hit the track on Friday.
Take a look at Servia there. Driver for Paul Tracy. In the wall.
That would be Dominguez, because that would be the other team car, because we were looking back at Oriol Servia And in fact,
full course yellow.
Just stay there. Ooh, come on. When we see what the damage is, come on in the pits.
and the drivers are told if they're okay to put the visor up. That is the sign to the safety team, so we will take that as good news for Mario Dominguez.
This is in turn 9. Hard impact. Let's go back and take a look.
Whoa, oh, he's already backwards.
That could have been a too much brake to the rear type thing, because he was backwards going into the corner like he had jumped on the brakes and the car got away from him.
And we had a report from the pits that some people have brake bias going to the rear. That could be what could happen.
Safety crew is there. Disappointment early for Mario Dominguez. Sebastian Bourdais leads the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach on NBC. Talked about all the fun stuff going on here this weekend in Long Beach. How about the 31st annual Toyota Pro Celebrity Race? Some stars from television and the entertainment world. Hugh Hefner, the Grand Marshal. And then they dropped the green flag. Celebrity starting about 10 seconds ahead of the pro drivers. There were some exciting moments during this event, including George Lucas gets a tap. And they're into the wall. But the checkered flag came out, and here are the winners.
I'm here with the two winners of the Toyota Pro Celebrity Grand Prix. Mike Skinner, a familiar face, the NASCAR star over there. The celebrity winner is Dave Mirra, wire to wire. Nice shot.
Thank you. You know what? It was all about getting a good start ahead of Martina, getting a little breathing room and keeping it on the track, and that seemed to work out.
Good going.
Thanks.
And that's Les Unger, the Toyota National Motorsports Manager, with the winners in victory lane. Pit stops, Marty Snyder.
Royal Serbia hits pit road. It'll be 4 tires. The car had a little bit of understeer, but not enough to make a change to it. The chassis changes. They're hoping they get it full of fuel. They had a fueling issue on this car last week. 4 brand new tires.
So selected teams making pit stops under the first caution flag of the Toyota Grand Prix here in Long Beach. Bill Stevens.
Down here in Sebastian Bourdais' pit, you see his crew members all gathered around here. There's a piece of equipment back here underneath this cabinet. It's an air supply, and it has air regulators in there. And just a moment ago, there was a problem, and one of the air lines started leaking and sending everybody scattered in all directions. As you can see, the crew is working on a piece of equipment now that should fix this thing, but that's a vital part of this whole pit operation down here, being able to use this to inflate the tires to the proper inflation pressures.
And what they're looking at there, that is the air jack that goes into the back of the car. It's plugged into a nitrogen bottle, which is what, if you have a leak in a nitrogen bottle, it can be dangerous, and that will make you scramble. They have spares down there. Should be okay now, Bill.
Now it's time for the CDW Virtual Pit Stop, where you, the viewer, try to make the right call. Today's question, who will earn Rookie of the Year honors? Rahal, Pagenaud, or Johnny? Using a mobile phone, text A for Rahal, B for Pagenaud, or C for Johnny to 55333. Each text costs 50 cents. Let's check in with Michelle.
Hey guys, I talked with Derrick Walker, who mentioned that they would need 2 to 3 laps of yellow for this to be a 2-stop race, and it looks as though that could be happening.
Thanks, Michelle. Green flag back in the air at Long Beach.
And here comes Tagliani. He's going for second in the black and red. Awesome restart for Alex Tagliani.
Heading down into that tight turn 1. Will Power thinking about making the move on the inside, but
and look at Rahal.
Good move. Nice move.
Graham Rahal.
I would think some of those push to passes were going on there.
Absolutely. The old Cosworth power to pass is 50 more horsepower by giving additional turbo boost. You get some extra RPM as well, and restart's a fantastic time, but you only get 60 seconds in a race. In this particular instance, the best time to use it's on a restart.
Exactly. Because if you can catch that guy sleeping in front of you just a little bit, that's the easiest pass you'll make the whole race.
Let's talk a little bit about this street circuit. Really narrow, as you guys have mentioned, very bumpy, and really need to get through the rhythm portion of this very smoothly. See if we can't jump on board here with Justin Wilson.
Turn number 9, that's 75, then you're about 100 miles an hour through here, down to the chicane. First gear, 30 miles an hour. It's not very often you take a Champ car down to 30 miles an hour, and then you hit the hammer. It's like being shot out of a slingshot here down the main straightaway.
And you can see how far he had his hands turned over. That corner is very, very tight, and you actually cross over, and extra arms, you have to turn the wheel so far.
Graham Rahal runs in the 5th position. Let's go back and watch him make this move.
It's a case where he actually got off. He got off the hairpin better, and it was a case where Doornbos was trying to get it back. So that would definitely most likely be a Cosworth power to pass type of thing, because he had the move done way before he got down to turn 1.
That's a gutsy move for an 18-year-old rookie, isn't it?
You know, but racing is race. I'd say right now that Graham Rahal is as relaxed as he has been all year, because he didn't get any, like you said, no in Las Vegas because he crashed on the start. But now, yes, the car's bigger, the car's faster, but now he's doing what he's done practically since he was born, and that is just doing the thing, just in a bigger car.
His dad, a 3-time series champion, former Indy 500 winner Bobby Rahal. Check down on pit road.
Well, guys, checked in with Derrick Walker, the team owner for Will Power. You see there in the number 5 car tooling around the racetrack. The strategy for them today, as it will be with many teams, try and make this a 2-stop race. Stretch out that fuel as long as you can. As Derrick told me, the key today will be how fast can you run a lap and save fuel at the same time.
There you go. I'm not asking you guys to do anything. I just want you to go as fast as you can and not use any fuel.
I hate when they ask you to do that, because I don't know how to do it.
The way you do it is you get to the end of the straightaways and you ease off the power gently before you get onto the brakes. That's one of the methods. And in the middle of the corners, especially some of these slowers, you just never want to stab the throttle. Never pop, 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 pop. You have to be just really smooth and feeding in the power.
Yeah, but Marty didn't throw in the part about you're not supposed to get past either when you're doing that.
Yeah.
There are the 2 team.
Derrick threw in that part to me, guys. Don't get past, but save fuel for me, okay?
Work on that, Marty, would you?
I'm all over it, Weber.
Thank you, sir. That's Will Power, Mr. Stevens.
You know, I talked to Will Power this morning, and he's such an engaging young man. He's just a flatliner, never gets excited, same sentiment. I asked him, what was his last week like after that first big victory? He said, I can't believe how many interview requests I got from back in Australia. Every time I turned around, my cell phone was ringing.
Big win for Will Power. Let's watch the race and check in with Michelle.
Never be normal. All right, you guys, somebody that we're very happy to see roaming the pits is Cristiano D'Amato, who suffered a season-ending injury last year, but you look fantastic. Tell me, how are you feeling?
Well, I feel I'm ready to go back to the race car. Of course, I'm in touch with my doctors all the time, and I've been in touch with them. Of course, I try to be as fortunate as I can. I think I've already been fortunate to recover so quick from the whole thing. But one thing I keep on thinking right now is, like, they allowed me to ride my mountain bike, so the race car cannot be too far away. You know, the race car must be close.
I like that answer. Thanks a lot, guys. Back to you.
Thanks, Michelle.
I tell you what, I hope he gets back in the race car, because he's a race car driver. That guy's a shoe. He's fun to watch.
And he was involved in a very freak accident a year ago, John.
Testing at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and hit a deer that ran across the track, and it was a critical head injury for him. He is actually flying back to Wisconsin, to that very hospital on Tuesday, to get checked out by the doctors to find out how long they think his recovery will be. Now, he's recovered, but in order for him to get in a race car, they have to do scans and be sure that if he took another impact, he'd be okay.
Couple of rookies here on board with Graham Rahal. Looking forward at Simone Pagenaud.
Rahal looks to me like he's a little bit quicker than Pagenaud right now, but you got to make the pass. So he's trying to set him up. There's a couple places here you want to be right on the guy's hill, Jan, and be as close as you can, and then make that out braking like on the hairpin.
And while you were speaking, if you were listening to Graham, he's also in fuel conservation, because as he approached that corner, there was a moment when he was easing off the throttle but wasn't on the brakes. So quite a few of these guys, again, they have plenty of fuel to make it to the end of the race, but if you can save a little, you can do more laps before you make that pit stop.
On board with Oriol Servia, driving for Paul Tracy, who again out for 3 months after being injured here on Saturday. Want more Champ Car race action? Subscribe to Race Director. Just go to www.champcar.ws and choose from 6 different camera angles while you listen to the team radio communications and view live telemetry, all on your home computer.
And that was Survey. We were listening into Survey, couldn't hear just the end, but he was calling to Neil Mickelwright with some information about the car. And what you do on the straightaway, as you get a read on the car, even though we're a long way from pit stops, they want to call in and say what the attitude of the car is so the engineers can plan what to change during the pit stop. Marty?
That's exactly right, Jan. And while he had a second to breathe, what he came on the radio to say was, guys, the car has now gone to a push situation, meaning a little bit of an understeer. Remember, when he came in for the pit stop, he had a little bit of an oversteer, meaning the car wanted to slide around a little bit. So now that's transitioned over to a tighter condition.
Heading down the long straightaway here.
Well, they made the right move. They just went a little bit too far.
And it changes on the fuel load. Your car traditionally, when you're heavy on fuel, wants to go straight, doesn't want to turn. That's the understeer condition. And as it burns off and the tires get more heat in them, they do tend to get loose.
Alex Tagliani runs second. Then it's Will Power and his teammate Simone Pagenaud. Third and fourth, that's Tags in the red and black machine. Then Power, then Pagenaud. Alex, fourth a week ago at Las Vegas, was third here last year and 15th in 2005. More from Bill.
Down here with Paul Gentilozzi, who runs the show for Alex Tagliani. I noticed during practice this weekend a lot of work on spring packages, handling. Have you had a chance to evaluate the car? It's running well, but are you happy with what it's doing?
No, he's made a good race car. You know, Alex never needs a note from home to be aggressive. So he's taken a couple positions. Right now we're working on fuel economy. The car's balanced. We're in pretty good shape.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Remember last week in Las Vegas, they had a miscalculation. They gambled on fuel, and it may have cost them the victory in Las Vegas.
John, you want to try and set us up for this? It's an hour and 40-minute race. These teams know about how far they can go, but it's based on what the clock is doing and how much fuel you're using.
Correct. So you will make a pit window. They know that they can go 30 or 31 laps on a load of fuel, which is 35 gallons. So when they're telling a driver to save some fuel, that would mean that Alex at the moment could go 30 laps, but if he saves a little, he could go 31. And if he does so, it would be a 2-stop race. And I think for all the front runners, you really don't want to make 3, even under a caution. They really want to try and stay on a 2-stop strategy. And a move there as Oriole continues to work forward.
Got around Matt Holliday there. Actually, that looks like Alex Johnny.
It's actually Tristan Gomandi, but
well,
that's okay.
That's all right. That's why you're here.
And Neil Johnny is, however, right behind him. So these are a couple European guys. And when you talk about the track being bumpy, when you talk to those that come from Europe, it blows their mind. They said this American style of racing, of being on a bumpy track, jumping all over the place, is crazy. But it's a new technique. You have to learn how the car works across the bumps.
Here's the move. Servia on the right-hand side makes the move inside. And just to finish the point about 2 stops, you think everybody's right on the edge of being able to do it on just 2.
And every bit of yellow flag you get, it makes your job easier. So if we get some more caution periods, we will, in fact, be much easier. But at this point, you definitely want to be saving a little bit of fuel.
Sebastian Bourdais leads by 3.5. There's Servia, again driving for Paul Tracy, injured here Saturday. Expected to be out for 3 months. We'll see a doctor next week in Indianapolis.
And he was talking this morning about just, getting back into the rhythm here, just picking his way through. Like I said, he was happy with the car, the way the car handled and everything, but the time was in him, not the race car. That he was having to find a little bit of time. The more he ran, a little bit quicker and quicker he got.
What's interesting, if the time is in you don't know what's wrong with the car. In other words, until you get the car to the limit, you couldn't tell them what to change anyway. You have to take it to the limit and say, oh, well, the front gives up or the rear gives up. But until you get yourself up to the level of the car, you pretty much say, hey, leave it alone because I have no idea.
Exactly, and that's exactly pretty much what he was saying.
And he's a former series runner-up in the point standings in really good equipment today.
Target 40.
Thank you, sir.
that was a fuel target of 40. And they're starting to use code now because they know we can, because a lot of times they would go by miles per gallon. If we hear they're doing 1.72 or their target's 1.74, we know what it means, but that is one of the code numbers they use. In the meantime, let's get down to Marty.
Well, Jan, they will talk constantly in code, as you said. That's what Derrick Walker told me this morning. He said the 2 cautions, what they needed was 2 cautions for at least 5 laps to be able to make it a 2-stop race. You guys were talking about Oriol Serbia a minute ago. He said, you know, I learned when I did the Newman-Haas-Lanigan thing. He said, when I got into a fast car, it should be fast. So I should be fast. I should be equal to what the car can do. So it shouldn't be about me. It should be about what the car is able to do, not what I'm able to do.
You're talking in code, Wally. Well, I don't hear well. I thought he said the car was sporty. So if they can't hear really well, then they're not to worry about me stealing their secrets.
Bill.
Well, they are watching Graham Rahal's performance very carefully down here in his pit because this morning there was an engine problem with that race car, and they debated whether or not to change the engine. They went back and forth, decided to stay with the engine that's in it. It was a very hopeful sign earlier in the race when we saw him make that pass.
28-year-old Sebastian Bourdais out front here in the Grand Prix of Long Beach. We'll be back in a moment with more from the Champ Car World Series after these messages and a word from our local NBC stations. The stars, the cars, and the fans of the Champ Car World Series live at Long Beach on NBC. Sebastian Bourdais is the race leader in Hockey Town. Tradition fuels the desire. The Can the Dominator, Dominic Hasek, and the Red Wings douse the Flames' destiny. It's next Saturday, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. The Wings winning today, up 2-1. And Bourdais is going for his 3rd straight win here. Led 70 of 74 laps a year ago.
That's about a 6-second lead right now. Bourdais has over Tagliani.
Then it's Power, Pagenaud, and Rahal.
That's a fantastic representation of having the field covered. I mean, you see Sebastian Bourdais off just completely clear road. Then we drop back and see everyone just struggling, working, clawing, all about the same speed. But Sebastian really in a class of his own, and that's what we talked about in the Open. Someone has to step up in Paul Tracy's shoes and rattle Sebastian. When he runs at the front, he's unstoppable. You have to give him some pressure, and that's what happened in Vegas. He was under pressure, and things went wrong. When he's out front, he's very tough to beat.
Trying to become a 4-time champion of the Champ Car World Series and win this race for the 3rd straight year. There's the rookie Rahal on board with him.
And watch his hands. So Wally and I have been watching all, look at that, takes one hand off completely and rotates it around and crosses over because there's so much steering lock.
Okay, take a lap with him.
But let's listen when he gets down to the braking area. Let's see if he's saving fuel. Okay, saving more fuel on the back straightaway than he is. He's going ahead and running it right down into turn 1. And at the very center of his steering wheel, when he straightens it up, right in through here, has his fuel number. On the radio and say, we need 40, we need 40. He has an LED right at the top of the steering wheel, but I listened to him back off early here. Ooh, okay, he's changed.
Yeah, you know what?
He's not backing off early. He's decided that what he wants to do, he wants to go after Pagenaud. So he has stopped saving fuel. Now he's ramping it up.
And getting pressure from behind.
I think he started catching Pagenaud and he started running a little harder, which is what you're going to do. It's human nature. But now he's got his mirrors full. That's Doornbos behind him.
Off the spectacular run a week ago, Robert Doornbos, 2nd at Vegas.
And Doornbos would be close because we were riding with Graham when he got the thing.
L3.
More from Cameron Steele.
Well, the one thing Robert Doornbos has been struggling with the most here in Champ Car is fuel conservation. And in fact, in yesterday's qualifying session, he ran out of fuel and had to sit and watch more than half the session. Good news for him was his 6th starting position held up all the way through that session that he earned earlier in the day.
And just before we went to Cameron, you heard on the radio L3. That means 3 laps to pit. So we are getting close to where we're going to see some of this first round pit stop from the leaders. People like Oriol Servia, who came in, obviously, will try and take this opportunity to move towards the front.
On the go, you can follow all the exciting Champ Car action with Champ Car Mobile. Go to www.champcar.ws to download a live leaderboard, wallpapers, and ringtones to your mobile phone. Standard data rates will apply. Bourdais continues to dominate, but this is where the action is, and what a talented rookie class this certainly looks to be in 2007. These guys are going to be fun to watch all year. That's Bourdais in the McDonald's run.
That was Kenny Seawick talking to Sebastian. Again, talking him through number of laps, getting ready for pit stops. There's another reason why Sebastian wants to have a big lead. He has horrible pit position because it's based on your finish of the last event. He's not at pit out like he's used to. If he has a big lead, he shouldn't be around other cars.
Bill Stevens.
Down here with Craig Hampson, crew chief for Sebastian Bourdais. The chess game has begun with fuel management. How are you guys going to play it today?
Well, right now we're actually just kind of cruising. He's making outstanding mileage. We're a few laps away from our first pit stop, but kind of a walk in the park so far. I'm sure it'll get exciting a little later on, but good mileage, car's good, we're pretty happy.
If it stays green like this, 2 pit stops?
Absolutely.
That's a walk in the park at 180.
I was just saying, and he's flying right now.
Yeah.
He is turning some laps just a lot quicker than everybody else.
What's interesting is Craig Hampson reflects what Sebastian is feeling. They are like joined at the hip. Okay, so 3 laps for Sebastian, meaning that he's going to pit later because we heard other people getting that L3 call a lap ago. So he can run a lap longer. And when you see Craig Hampson that relaxed, that means Sebastian Bourdais is that relaxed in the car, and that's a scary proposition.
That's Tagliani in second, then Team Australia. Marty.
Derrick Walker's given the orders to both Will Power and Simone Pagenaud. You can go as hard as you want now. Fuel is not a problem. 3 more laps until these guys pit. So in theory, we should see some of the top 4 cars pit all at the same time.
If you're Bourdais right now, the last thing you want to do is stop, right? Because you're in your rhythm. You got it all going.
That's where, at this point in the way the race is going, that's where it can all go wrong, is in the pit. So yeah, you don't want to stop.
Tagliani runs second. Then Will Power, last week's winner. There's his teammate, Simone Pagenaud. Had a chance to talk to him in the paddock yesterday. Very friendly young man. Really excited. Let's get an update on Paul Tracy from Michelle.
I just spoke with Paul Tracy's mother, who is still here, and she let me know that Paul is back at home in Las Vegas. He is resting comfortably, and that he woke up this morning and didn't even feel the need to take any of his painkillers. So who knows? We may see him back a lot sooner than expected.
Looks like Doornbos peeled off onto pit road. So there have been some that have been back in the order.
Next lap. It's next lap.
Although pit lane's about to get very busy.
I think that was Rob Edwards, so that would be one of the Team Australia cars. Should be in next time around.
Tagliani in that red machine is second. Then Power is third. Pagenaud is fourth. A 1.9 mile, almost 2 mile street course here in Long Beach. Graham Rahal, the light blue and white machine.
And these guys, Jan, are going to have to be very patient when they're in the pits. They've got to make sure that their fuels, when they're putting fuel in the car, that's all sorted out from last week. These guys they've got to get it right. If they come back in, they're giving it away.
And we should take just a quick, brief moments to describe that. The cars are not filling as quickly as they have in the past. The teams know that. They have changed lots of parts in the fuel cell. But for the next 2 races, they'll be a little bit slow on the fill. So Graham Rahal does pull off, as well as Pagenaud and Power. But expect the stop to be a little longer. Marty?
Team Australia pitting together, guys. They will come down pit road, and Rob Edwards reminded them to take things as slowly as they could and be patient here on pit road. Actually coming first will be Simone Pagenaud to pit road. They will get all the fuel in. He wanted no changes to the chassis. Here's what you were talking about, Jan. Being patient, waiting for the fuel to fill up, gets it full, 4 new tires, they get off pit road.
That's on board with Rahal. Looking forward to Pagenaud. Power stayed on the course.
And it was a fantastic angle from Graham Rahal's car. We were looking right down at the fuel vent, and you may have seen lots of fuel coming out of that. That's what the fuelers have to do, is they have to wait and wait. Normally when you see fuel in there, you disconnect immediately, but now they have to stay with it a bit longer. And Sebastian Still's not pitting. That is phenomenal fuel mileage.
And running the quickest laps of the field, the whole entire 30 laps.
Now having to work his way through a little bit of traffic, but with a commanding lead, almost 10 seconds now. Bourdais had all the issues last week at Las Vegas. There's Will Power on pit road, last week's winner. Marty.
And guys, when they asked Will Power about the chassis, he had zero response, meaning he thinks the chassis is just fine, but he's got to pick up some time to beat Bourdais. Clearly waiting on the fuel, once again making sure it is completely full, and he leaves pit road.
Have to be so careful down there on pit road, very narrow. A lot of traffic.
That is a huge improvement, however, than what we saw. Okay, they're calling Sebastian in. But yes, those pit stops were a little bit slow, but wow, big improvement from what we saw in Las Vegas.
Expecting Bourdais to make the trip down pit road this time. Here he comes. Race leader in the pits.
Right on the mark. Try and fill the car.
Bill Stevens.
The McDonald's team doing their thing. They were concerned about their pit position. They're only 3 spots away from pit in. A lot of contact here when things get crazy, but so far they are clean and mean. Scuffed set of primer Bridgestones, replace the red sidewalls, and he gets away with a full fuel cell of methanol.
Slowly works his way off of pit road. Gave up a 10-second lead. We'll be back in a moment with more from the Champ Car World Series Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach after these messages, and Bill Clement with an ADT NBC Sports Update. Our NBC Sports coverage of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach continues on a beautiful day. Here on the streets of Long Beach, Oriol Surius scored as the race leader, but pit strategy really cycling the leaders through the field at this point.
The top 3 are all drivers. When you look at Servia, Johnny, and Gomendi, they pitted early. So it's a fantastic opportunity for Servia to get out there and get some clear running. He's running some smoking lap times at the moment, but unfortunately, anybody who stopped early still has to make 2 pit stops. So there's really not a scenario right now that's really going to work in your favor to win, but he's in clear road. In the end of the day, it's still going to help him.
And he again replacing the injured Paul Tracy, so Servia in the car, Tracy out of the car, watching.
It's just like watching your wife on a date with another man. This is the worst thing a race car driver wants to see. I mean, and I'm sure, Tracy and Servia, are friends and all that, but still, Paul Tracy's sitting there, and he does not want to see anybody else in his race car.
It's Alex Tagliani in that first red machine.
Yeah.
And on board with Justin Wilson.
Now they're teammates, which is, that's the new marriage on pit road between Roo Sport and Rocket Sports, making our sports. And these two guys have been helping each other engineering-wise tremendously, but now the gloves are off. Tagliani's been fast, but Wilson all of a sudden has found some big-time speed after that pit stop.
And they've got Team Australia off the rear wing. Update from Bill.
Something interesting about Justin Wilson. Last night, quite late, he was still here in his car, adding padding to the inside of the cockpit. I asked him why he was doing that, and it had something to do with the fact that Paul Tracy had hurt his. Justin felt as if there was a little bit too much play in his belts and a little bit too much movement in his body when he shifted gears, or there were lots of G-forces on his body. So he added padding to the car to snug him in a little bit tighter.
Thanks, Bill. Let's talk about the strength and endurance it takes to muscle these cars around the track for an hour and 40 minutes, because it looks pretty easy, but it's not.
No, it's not at all. I mean, these cars are brutal. They're very difficult to turn. On the throttle, it throws you back. When you jump on the brakes going into a corner, it throws you forward. And then going through the corners, it just pitches you from side to side. These cars are very violent to drive. If you watch the legs, watch Wilson's legs as they go through the corner, you can see him just moving way over to the right. And, all these G-forces these guys are pulling. Marty.
He said he did not want changes to the car. They're trying to hold him here. This is the patience part we talked about earlier. here. Oriolo not used to these new type of pit stops, having to hold him on pit road, wanted no changes to the chassis, even though at the end he had a significant amount of understeer, decided to make no changes to the front wing. With 4 new tires, he's back on the racetrack.
Well, he was running some pretty good times there, Marty. I mean,
yeah,
he was running
he was flying well,
right at the end.
Yeah, he was really moving.
Let's check in on today's CDW virtual pit stop, where you, the viewer, try to make the right call. Today's question, who will earn Rookie of the Year honors? Remember, using a mobile phone, text A for Rahal, B for Pagenaud, or C for Neil Jani. Rahal leading that race for now. Graham runs in the 9th position.
They're calling Tristan in.
Around the hairpin there. And on to pit road. He was scored as the race leader.
Get on nice and straight. We're going to go 4 tires and fuel.
But again, Bourdais has been the class of the field.
One thing about the slower fuel is it takes all the pressure off tire changers. I mean, it used to be 1, 2. He got about 3.5 turns, I believe, of front wing, but only on one side. So he must be having push only in left-hand corners. And now, look at this. We got a great battle on the front stretch.